Hey everybody, it's Arian Simone, and I am so excited to have you guys in my session. Yes, the delegation is in the building, and I had to make sure you all that I had my face done. You know what? Because you guys were not about to send me a raft boat or a helicopter. You hear me? I would like to be on the Hail Mary list and not the Rescue Eve list. But you know what? In the event that anything ever happens to me, I know you guys will send me a boat. I know you will send me a boat. Well, today I'm here to talk to you guys about success on your terms. Success on your terms. And I want to give you guys 7 different principles that talk about living success on your terms. And I have a small inkling that Pastor Sarah may have given me this topic because I did a podcast with her recently and I was talking about wearing this pink wig into our venture capital meeting. So I think maybe that may have a little something to do with it. Not sure, but hey, I'll take it. The Roberts are always giving me a topic where I feel like, oh gosh, I got to dig deep. Last year I was the purpose coach, and this year it's success on your terms. Well, the first thing that came to my mind when I heard about success on your terms, I thought about the scripture in Romans 12 and 2 and 3, which we have heard on many occasions about not conforming to this world, but being transformed by the renewing of your mind. And then the scripture goes on to talk about testing and approving that this what is God's perfect will. So that kind of told me a few things, you guys. So I'm gonna just backtrack just a little bit that, okay, if we're not to conform to the ways and the patterns of this world, but we're to be transformed by the renewing of our minds, that told me that, wait a minute, that the way see things in the world are not the way that God sees things, of course, because it says test and approve what his perfect will is. So that tells me that God's perfect will is not in alignment with the pattern of this world. So I had to just stop, y'all, and I just had to meditate on that. And I'm like, okay, success on your terms. So what that tells us is that when we are looking at success on our own terms, it's not going to look like the ways of the world. So we don't need to go after them like the ways of the world. I'm someone who definitely lives, I would say, success on my terms. You guys have heard, if you saw the previous taping from last year, plenty of wild stories from sneaking into BET Awards and participating in big booty contests. And not that I'm saying any of this is success, okay? Let me be clear, because I don't want to get this all twisted up. I don't need to get any mail from the Roberts. But what I'm saying is I definitely live life on my terms, not according to the way people would probably say, oh, you need to live life this way. So I'd like to dive into these 7 principles. But just a little bit before I go there, when you're talking about success on your terms, and you're just thinking about the way that God does things, the God that we serve is infinite. The God that we serve is just extraordinary. So when you're talking about success on your terms, there's no way that you can look at the way other people do things. Because what he is doing in your life is so unique that you don't have to look to somebody else. You don't have to look to the patterns of this world. And that is so key as we are in this social media driven society. Because so often you want to look to see what is the next person doing and how did they do that? No. Allow God to do his perfect work in you. Because it's not going to look like what somebody else has. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But we're going to dive into these 7 principles. Yes. So for those of you guys who are taking notes, there are 7 principles that I encourage you to adopt and embody to live success on your terms. The first principle is the belief principle. You want to take on the mindset of a winner. If you're going to live success on your terms, you got to go into this thing boldly. The word says that our confidence is richly rewarded. So you want to go into this thing unwavering, without any reservation. And there are so many examples in the Bible that shows about how to achieve success in a non-traditional format. I'm pretty sure every biblical story, you're achieving success in a non-traditional format. This is where God does his perfect work. This is where miracles are seen. But I want to talk about the story, you guys. We're talking about having the mindset of a winner and succeeding on our own terms, of David and Goliath. I heard Pastor Sarah say something one day. I'm watching on YouTube as usual. And she said, I challenge you to see David as a front runner and not an underdog. Now, forgive me if I did not watch the rest of the message, because I know I did pause and I went to go get my Bible real quick. I said, I need to go reread this story. As I was reading the story, I said, wait a minute. I think I may see what she's talking about. So when we hear and see about like the story of David and Goliath, we see this. We see this small person, a regular sized person, and visually in our mind, we're thinking we see, oh, this big giant. So automatically your mind goes to this underdog mentality. But I said, you know what? I'm going to read this story again as if I'm reading it for the first time, but I'm going to read it through the eyes of David. And I want to see what his mindset was like as he was going through this. So I'm reading this story, y'all. I'm going to ebonize this just a little bit. So do not look, this is not the NIV version. This is not the King James. This is the Arian Simone version. So I'm reading this story and I'm like, whoa. So this man was bad. So David is talking about Goliath and how he's volunteering himself to go fight this giant. And he's basically saying, you need to check my track record. Did you see what I did with the lion? Did you see what I did with the bear? I think you want to check this resume. And I'm like, oh, this is a bad man. Then he's telling you all the wonderful things God did. And does. So he's like, you need to check his track record. He's basically like, this light work. And I was like, why did we ever view David as an underdog with this kind of mentality? Let me tell you how crazy I would say that he was to even go after such a feat. He wasn't asked to go do this. He didn't get a visit from an angel that said, oh, you're called to this. This is not like when God told Moses, I need you to go lead the people. And Moses is like, oh my gosh, but I got this stutter. This is none of that. This man decided on his own mind and his own will that he was going to go fight the giant today. Like that's just where his mind was at. So we're talking about the mindset of a winner. And you know what? We know how the story ends. It ends in victory. In a non-traditional way, talking about success on your terms, it ends in victory with a slingshot and a rock to take out a giant. We know the story, and then chop off the head. Okay? So there are plenty of these examples, but I'm honing in on this belief principle because you want to be so convinced that victory is yours if you are going to achieve success on your terms. Now, I don't know if you guys watch sports, but I am an avid sports watcher. I love watching sports. And there is one game in particular when I'm talking about being the mindset of a winner that just sticks out to me. And it's when the Atlanta Falcons were in the Super Bowl very recently. I want to say it was 2017. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And they were playing the Patriots. And I reside in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm there and I'm cheering on the Falcons and I'm cheering on the Falcons. I'm like all excited, right? The Falcons are kicking butt. They are winning 28-0. I'm like, yes, there's about to be a Super Bowl coming to Atlanta, Georgia. Champions are here, right? So the Patriots out of nowhere score 3 points. And I just start getting nervous. The guys are like rejoicing, whatever. I'm in the house with my best friend, Kelly, and she's looking at me like, Arian, it's up 28-3. It's no big deal. I'm like, oh, it's a big deal. And she said, no, I need you to calm down. I said, I'm not calming down. And she said, well, why are you so disturbed about these 3 points? I said, do you see them rejoicing at 25 down over 3 points? And she said, well, yeah, it's no big deal. I said, no, that's a very big deal. Somebody who can rejoice in the midst of defeat. I said, that's the mindset of a winner. I said, you better watch out for that person. I said, because they are convinced that victory is theirs, even in defeat. They do not change their posture. Now, if you watch sports, typically at a time like this, the players are cussing each other out. They're going off with the coach. I mean, it's just a very tumultuous time usually. But these men were postured. They were calm. They just held their stance and they were focused. And I said, you know what? They've also been here before. You have to watch out for this. Next thing you know, the score gets to like 28, maybe it's 14. Either way, the Patriots start like creeping up. My best friend Kelly, she's still saying, girl, it's no big deal. I'm like, I told you it was a big deal at 28-3. Who knew? The score becomes 28-28. They are tied. Now the game is in overtime. And guess what? The Patriots won in overtime. Yes, victory. So when you're talking about having a mindset of a winner, you have to be so convinced that even in the midst of defeat, that you know that victory is yours. This is the first principle, and this is why I'm going into a few stories just so that you guys can really hone in on this, because this is the foundation for having success on your terms. You have to believe that it is possible. Fear happens, but God doesn't give us the spirit of fear. He gives us power, love, and sound mind. And this is key because fear is unseen and so is faith. You choose which one you're going to adopt for your life.